Hey y'all, welcome to Shade and the City. It's your girl Treese here. And of course, I'm here to give you your recap of Beyond the Gate Season 1, Episode 145. This would have been Tuesday's episode, and the way that they just grazed over Doug's memorial, like in and out, as Sky said, quick commercial break, was crazy. All right. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. But if you haven't already, please go ahead and do me a favor, all my Shade Squad and my new viewers, and go ahead and hit that like button for me. And if you're feeling the vibe, please go ahead and do us a favor and subscribe. All right. But yeah, so let's go ahead and get into this recap of Beyond the Gates. And let's get shady, y'all.
Lights drip on the skyline paint. Shade in the city, true hit like a banger. I said it, I meant it, no need for disclaimers. Haters right away, but they just false claimers. Concrete beats are heavy like cinder. Looking for one, but the streets feel winter. No filters, no edits, I'm raw with my splinters. My life a movie, they watching us trailers. Said it, I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, the life in the mold. You like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe. This is my word, I just let you inside. I said it, I'm not gonna hold you. Shade in the city, my words gon' console you. Like and subscribe if you feeling the vibe.
Like I said, Doug's memorial came and went. Okay. That's how the show started off. We see Vanessa thanking Nicole and Danny for giving their speeches. They reminisce on how Doug used to be the life of the party. And we see Carlton kind of in the background, just I don't know, it was looking, I don't know, it was weird, suspect. I don't know, it was giving suspect, but I mean he's still fine, but it was giving like, what are you really doing? What are you thinking? Just me. Or maybe I just want to know what he's thinking. Anyway, so Danny reassures Vanessa that despite things getting complicated in the end, Doug absolutely loved her. Vanessa gets all emotional as she reminisces on their last conversation and her night with Joey. Okay. Vanessa is talking about how she just wishes she would have held on to Doug a little bit tighter. And, she tells Nicole, she was Doug's tether. And so Nicole said, you can't tether someone who doesn't want to be. Vanessa was like, please continue to remind me of that. Well, before Danny, Nicole, and Carlton head out, Nicole lets her know, look, girl, we got you and the kids whenever y'all need. So as they leave, Vanessa starts to break down when Joey conveniently shows up, letting her know that he's there for her to lean on. He said, just call on me, Vanessa, when you need a hand. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you understand. Okay, I'm sorry. Vanessa's like, nah, I'm good. I can't lean on you here either. You know what I'm saying? And then she notices that Donnell is missing. So Donnell is down at the police station to see Jacob. And of course, Deputy Dogood gives his condolences, and Donnell lets him know, well, I'm here because I have questions. And of course, we know it's all about Doug's passing. So we jump over to the boom boom room. Chelsea and Kat are talking about how they feel bad for missing Doug's memorial and, how hard it must be on Donnell and Deanna. And so Kat was like, was that the only thing that you're sorry about? So Chelsea said, oh, what you're not going to do and what I am not going to do is sit here and entertain your foolishness. Doug being unalive and me blurting something out to Tomas is not the same. So Kat wants her to apologize. And Chelsea asks Kat, do you remember Becky? Becky with the good hair. You remember her? And you remember how we fell out with Becky because she wanted to be with that cheating man? I'm just saying, I don't want that to be us. So Kat was like, girl, that'll never happen. And I said, ooh, they giving us a nugget. And honestly, I'm not surprised because I felt like even with the whole Chelsea situation, I felt like if Chelsea didn't get back into business, that was going to cause friction between her and Kat anyway. So I feel like they've kind of been foreshadowing that there's going to be some rift that comes between them. I don't want to see it happen, but sometimes when you're in business with people and your family, it can get messy. Okay. So Kat admits, look, I'm mad at my damn self, girl. But I can't help it. I still love Tomas. And I said, girl. Then we go over to the country club where Leslie and Eva march in, and Leslie instructs her to go act as if she's not upset about what Tomas did to her and convince him that basically Kat is not the one. And I said, are we really? And so Eva was like, oh, so you want me? Okay, so hold up. Okay, mama. So you want me to manipulate him like you would? And Leslie said, yeah, girl. Playing dirty is the price of admission. You gotta do what you gotta do. They say, what do they say on Players Club? You gotta use what you got to get what you want. Okay. So Eva is still, hesitant. And Leslie tells her, girl, go get yours. And I'm gonna go over here and, give my condolences to Vanessa. And I love when Eva was like, you ain't even know the McBrides like that for real. And so that's when Leslie walks off. That's when Eva walks over to Tomas talking about, oh, I think we need to finish what we started. Girl, bye. Danny and Nicole returned from Doug's memorial and they joined Kat and Chelsea. So I was wrong. They weren't in the boom boom room. They were at Nicole's house. So Nicole goes on about, hugging the ones you love and loving people while they're still here, et cetera, all that good stuff, right? And so this apparently triggers Catherine, to run her happy behind out the door to go looking for Tomas and leaving Chelsea rolling her eyes, which I was absolutely rolling mine as well. Girl. Let him come to you. Oh my God. Even Mr. Tomas said, like, yeah, you hurt me. And I realized that you were playing both sides and clearly prefer polished over real. So Tomas was like, damn, I really do regret saying that. And he said, but I do, I admit I came in hot with a bruised ego about Kat. But said, I ain't sleep with you to prove my manhood. I said, yeah, you cute or whatever. And, you got stuff going for you. You the whole deal. And so Eva was like, but Kat is a bigger one. Yep. Tomas basically has to break it down to her. And I don't know how many ways he has to tell her because he was kind of harsh last time, but he tries to, soften it a little bit and said, look, we are just on a different level, i.e., we are in the friend zone. Okay. And so Eva's dumb behind. Well, even though I know what I know now, I still don't regret it. And I said, and because you stupid, like your mama, that's why. So let's jump over to her mama and her foolishness. So then Leslie goes over to speak to Vanessa. But she don't even talking to Vanessa that long because she quickly notices Joey and takes interest, okay? Vanessa quickly lets her know, oh, this is Joey, that's my business partner, okay? Hands off. Or it's going to be mask off. Better not play with the mob wife, okay? So then after Leslie leaves, she asked Joey, well, you still ain't seen Donnell? Joey was like, no, I ain't really looking for him, for real. And so Vanessa mentions that, well, his shoes were muddy when he came in and, he showed up late to the services and I ain't want to complain or nothing like that. But, and it ain't even rain over here. So I don't even know why his shoes would be muddy. And of course, this triggers something in Joey because obviously he can put two and two together, right? We know Joey is no dummy unless it comes to Vanessa. We see Donnell. He's sitting down at the police station. He's filling Jacob in. He's like, Deanna's back at school. Apparently, she decided to watch the live stream. And he said that, I decided before the services to go to the last spot. I believe my daddy to be alive. And so, he just reminisces on the times with his dad. And Jacob asked him, well, I don't know. Jacob seemed a little like insensitive. As Donnell is sitting here talking about all his memories, Jacob's like, what do you need? Because, I'm out here trying to do good. And you're on my good time. So what do you need, Donnell? So finally, Donnell is like, look, do you have any reports that can tell me, if my dad suffered or not? Which, of course, makes Marcel's head turn because he's like, oh, hell. And, Deputy do good because we know, I'm sure Marcel is the one that wrote up the report. Marcel comes over and interrupts this conversation between Donnell and Jacob. And that's when Jacob ends up introducing him to Donnell. And so Marcel is like giving his condolences and he lets him know, Deputy Do-Good is on the case. All right. So Jacob said, well, we waiting on a few things and then we're going to close the file on the accident. So once Marcel leaves, Donnell starts talking about how Doug would want him to, take care of Vanessa and Deanna. And he's questioning, whether He could have been saved if somebody had, drove past at the right time. And Jacob said, unfortunately, survivor's guilt is a real thing, and answers don't change facts. And I said, damn, Jacob, you're really throwing it out today. And he tells them, and unfortunately, based off my experience as an officer, Doug was going on impact. So then we see Donnell get a call from Vanessa trying to find out where he at. And he lets her know that, he's down at the police station. So Vanessa's like, well, why the hell are you over there? And she said, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I'm going to come meet you down there. And so she tells Joey, I got to go tend to Donnell because I know he's upset with me because I hid things about him about his daddy. And so Joey said, well, why is he down at the police station? And so Vanessa was like, because he can't accept, basically this new picture of his father that's been painted. Vanessa gets all, emotional and broken up. And Joey tells Vanessa that, look, this is not your fault. This is all Doug. Okay. And then of course, she runs off to the police station. So yeah, so back at Nicole's, Chelsea is filling Nicole and Danny in on Catherine's nonsense with Tomas. And basically, she admits, I probably didn't help the situation myself. So Danny was like, I ain't liking this, idea that Dupree women just out here getting cheated on. Like this is becoming a theme, and this is not a thing. Now, mind you, Carlton is in the background this entire time. Paul asked Chelsea, well, why didn't you stop Kat? And Chelsea was like, there was no stopping her. Did you see the look on her face? She's obsessed with winning. Chelsea is just hopeful that eventually this Tomas thing is going to run its course like we all hope. Paul has to run off and take a phone call. And then we see Danny and Chelsea kind of, interrogating Carlton a little bit, and was like, how was it being at the, memorial with Ted staring at the back of your head? And he was like, it was a lot, but he was like, I was definitely going to make sure I was here for Nicole. I said, that's right. And of course, Danny and Chelsea are eating this up. And so basically Danny was like, well, where do we see things go? What are your intentions? Back at the country club, Eva is still going back about this, if only for one night. Girl, let it go. Okay? It was one night. Jesus. And so Tomas was like, girl, can we just be friends? How many of us have them? Like, can we just stay there? So she's like, oh, but that night, and we were rolling around, and Tomas was like, we ain't got to do all that. We ain't got to do all that. And she was like, we do if you want to remain friends. And I was like, see, Tomas, that's why you don't need to be friends with her in the first place. That's what Kat was trying to tell you. But you don't listen good. So Eva was like, what we had was real. And that's not what you got with Kat. And Tomas was like, actually, I disagree. I already told you we were friends, and you keep painting this narrative that we're more than that. I might have added some benefits on the friends. And so Eva brings up, how, well, that's why you and Kat can't find the chemistry in the bedroom, because Kat is just there for herself and not you. And I was like, here we go. And that's when Kat conveniently strolls in, and Tomas is just dazed. And of course, Eva's upset because that man done told you. And you know what? That's how you know you ain't got no real good women in your life, because somebody should have definitely told you once, but not twice at this point. Don't let a man tell you he don't want you more than once. I think this is the second or third time he done told you that. Picking up back at the country club, Eva tells Kat that, you picked the perfect time to enter the chat. And she said, you've done everything you could to keep me and Tomas apart. And I said, do you remember that he was talking to Kat first? Because your mama is really getting to you. You might want to go talk to somebody. And why not Nicole? She has all the empathy in the world for you, right? So Tomas tries to get Eva to stop, but she keeps on going. Somebody mentioned this in the live last week, but the way Eva was going at Kat, just the same way he didn't like it when Kat did it to Eva, you can tell he's not really subscribing to Eva doing it to Kat either. So he's trying to get them to stop. Eva keeps on going. And she said, you know what? Eva said, all you did was push us closer. That's how they were able to connect. And I said, you dirty bitch. So Tomas tries to warn her again. Look, Eva, can you please leave Kat alone? And he said, this is not her fault. This is not your fault either. This is mine. Okay. And he tells Eva that, Kat never gaslit me, never lied, and says the truth is me and Kat actually love each other. And so Eva's like, what? What? You think you love her? Eva starts fussing, was like, oh, you think you love her. And said, but, Tomas, you really need to think about whether Kat really loves you or not. And so that's when she starts accusing Kat of using Tomas for revenge. And I was just like, two things can be true at the same time, right? And she was like, and that's why she can't feel anything in bed. And she was like, so how can you even believe those three little words from Kat? And so Tomas tells her, look, simmer down, okay? He said, first of all, Chelsea is the one that accidentally slipped up and told me. And he was like, what, accidentally? And he said, but Kat didn't ever tell me that. Again, why are we giving her all this explanation about what the hell is going on with y'all? That's neither here nor there. Then Tomas starts to address Kat and tells her, look, I thought it was over, okay? But now that you're here, I'm hopeful that we still have a chance. And so he does tell Eva, look, and I regret hurting you, but you know how you always say you need to hold on to what you want? Well, Kat is what I want. And I said, ugh. It was, you see how that went? It was like, yeah. I wanted to celebrate, but then it was like, things that no one asked for. But I'm happy that he finally put his foot down, but I feel like he was already putting his foot down when he told her a few times that he didn't want her like that. Okay. Then Kat looks at Eva and said, so how you feeling, half sis? And so, of course, Eva, responds, I feel cold and frigid. And then, of course, she stomps out. And then Kat turns to Tomas all giddy that he said he loved her. And I said, see, I couldn't even fully enjoy this woman. Again, it was I couldn't celebrate. Now, back in Nicole's, let me tell you what I can celebrate. Hey, celebrate good times. Come on. Let's celebrate. Yeah. So, back in Nicole's, Carlton scoffs at Danny's question about, his true intentions with her. And he lets Chelsea and Danny know that despite what they may have heard, he met Nicole before Ted, even though he was basically bullshitting him. The whole story is bogus, and basically he's trying to tell him to mind their business. And he said, look, I don't know how Nicole feels about me, but I know how I feel about her. And I said, and I know how I feel about you. But, okay, Nicole comes back. And so he changes the subject, talking about how much he liked the vase. But before he leaves, he gives her a little peck on the lips before he, goes back to surgery. And I said, we needed that to last a little longer. We need them to relish in that kiss a little longer. But it's okay. Danny and Chelsea was sitting right there, so I understand. Then Danny tells Nicole, you know what, girl, I really do prefer Carlton over the Cowardly Lion. I said, damn, Danny. So Nicole tells Danny, oh, no, girl, you don't get to be in my love life. Not after you done ran off and married Andre and decided you was going to stay married to him. And I said, of course, you got to bring that up because you still ain't let that go, right? Danny starts firing back at Nicole that her and Andre are not the first couple to run off to Vegas and get married, drunk or not. And she tells Nicole, you know what? I thought I was going to get a break because of Doug's memorial, but obviously not. And clearly there's no rest for the judgy. I said, yes, you better tell us something the way she talking about you. So Nicole accuses Danny of using Andre and advises her that, basically she needs to shut down this marriage. And Danny said, why is Andre being married to me the worst thing in the world? Mind you, Chelsea is just sitting here being a fly on the wall this whole time. So then she tells Nicole, Andre is a grown, successful man, okay? And he chose me. And Nicole tells her, oh, well, you would get back up because you always do when you're wrong. And Danny said, and of course, leave it up to you to be the arbiter of right and wrong, right? And I said, clock it. Ain't that how y'all do it? Clock it. Okay. So Nicole's like, you know what? Fine, enough about me. How does it affect the kids? Chelsea, how you feel about it? Chelsea said, well, honestly, being real with you, I ain't really mind that much. You know what I'm saying? As long as it was keeping my mama preoccupied and away from my daddy, I ain't really give a damn. And she said, I ain't think it was going to be permanent, but And so Danny was like, see, they still processing. See, you over here worried about my kids. When the last time you done sat down and talked to yours? Oh, we won't go there. And the Cowardly Lion. Girl, you better sit down somewhere. Eva goes back to Leslie's hotel room, and Leslie quickly realizes that things must have went wrong. So Eva tells her, I thought I started off strong, mama. And I felt like things were shifting. And Tomas might actually be open to the possibility of us. And I said, is that what she got from that conversation? Did anybody else get that? And maybe I'm tripping. And so then, Eva starts blaming her for sending her to make a fool of herself. And she's like, why am I listening to you? Where is your man at? And I said, I mean, when you're right, you're right. But you did, didn't you? Back over at the country club, Tomas is apologizing for how low Eva went. And Kat said, you know what? Don't even worry about it. I just want to get back to you loving me. And so Tomas said, well, look, are you mad? And Kat was like, no, why would I be mad? You shut Eva down. And then they exchange I love yous. And literally, I lost my breakfast. And then they decide to go hunch in the country club closet. That's all I got for y'all. Nessa tells Jacob that he can close Doug's case now, but Jacob tells her that he has to still get forensics from the casino. And that's when Joey shows up just in the nick of time. He's been doing this all episode, but he, shows up just in the nick of time to answer any questions that, Jacob might have for him. Back at the station, Jacob is surprised to see Joey, but he claims, hey, I'm here to help fill in the holes for Donnell because I know how much that means to him. So Joey hands him a copy of the surveillance footage from that night, and Donnell insists on seeing it immediately. And so they watch the video. And Vanessa is hurt when she sees Doug take the watch off that she gifted him. And so Marcel has been completely removed from the video, and we just see Doug stumbling out of the casino, and that's when we see Donnell and Vanessa obviously very emotional. Back over at Nicole's, Danny reminds Chelsea that although, I done a lot of stuff and I got my own things going on, I didn't forget about what you went through. And I apologize if I hurt you. That wasn't my intention. I'm just being me. This is who I am. I'm impulsive, okay? So when she asks Chelsea, well, why is it really bothering you so much? And Chelsea says, the stakes are higher after what happened with Doug and with Allison. She says she doesn't think that she needs to spend another moment play acting, especially not with love. And Danny tells her that what you have with Madison is real. And at one point, I did have that with your father. But now what I need is companionship. And I do know a lot of people, when they get into relationships, especially as they get older, that's literally what they start looking for. I don't know if I could do it. You got to be able to offer a little bit more than companionship, but I get it. Chelsea said, look, it's good, Ma. I just would have rather heard it from you than got it, via a Google alert. And so Danny said, look, I know what I have with Andre is very untraditional, but it's a safe and it's a fun place. And I trust him. And she said she ain't never had that before. And so she tries to convince Chelsea, look, don't worry about me. I'm good. And so Chelsea just said, look, okay, you talk a good game, but remember, you made a promise and you need to treat this marriage like it means something. And so that's when conveniently Danny gets a call from Andre. So she's like, well, let me go be a good wife. And she steps out to take his call. Chelsea realizes that her mom is happy, and reluctantly Nicole does as well. Chelsea, as she's getting ready to leave, Chelsea said, you know what? I just wish Kat would do better. But you know what? I said my piece, and I just hope it works out like she wanted to. Then we see Tomas and Kat at the country club. Really didn't want to go too much into this, but she finally got her, big O. Woohoo. I don't care. At Leslie's apartment, Eva tells her, well, you know what? Next time, I'm going to be myself, not a Leslie remix. And so Leslie was like, yeah, you always come over here blaming it on me. You've been real judgmental. And so Leslie was like, you've been judgmental since we came back to town. And, maybe I clearly taught you this life lesson a little too late. But if you give up on Nomas, he's as good as gone. It's going to be Nomas. All right. And so Eva thinks that, well, no, maybe Tomas will see that we're meant to be. And Leslie goes back to her speech. Oh, you silly rabbit. And girl, she's go back out there and fight so Kat can't have her, is basically what she said. And that was pretty much that episode 145, y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you have not already, please go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure that you guys comment. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure you hit the notification bell. Make sure you're following me on all the platforms. That's the TikTok, the Twitter, the Facebook, the IG, and the Blue Sky and Lemonade. Have a great day. Be safe, and I'll catch you later. Bye bye.